I'm happy to be here this evening, and I'm very honored that when the team was getting together, they thought that my wife and I would speak about this. I will represent my wife this evening, and if she is able, somewhere in the course of the evening, she may join us briefly, but I will start us out. So very happy to be here and to see all of us, and with quite a lot of expectations. But I just want to begin with a perspective about life, because life is complex. Life is complex. It's not easy, and it's never been easy for anyone. And even when you think that you are just having a good time, you find that something happens and it spins things out of control. So life is complex, and that's important for us to bear in mind. But at the same time, the complexity of life has to converse with our own knowledge, because sometimes we feel we are very knowledgeable. Sometimes we feel like we are above board. We feel that, we have what it takes, and, and all that. And yes, there are moments when life shows us that, or affirms us and tells us, yes, you have something to offer. Yes, you have lots of knowledge. But somewhere just around the bend, you might find that you come again face to face with your own ignorance. So life is a complex experience. And I'm saying that, knowing that all of us live this life. But at the same time, also, on the other hand, life is simple. It's kind of a paradox, because life is also simple. It's simple. For instance, you eat ugali and some sukuma wiki, and you are as full as somebody who is eating a whole buffet in a big restaurant. Life is simple also, because also when I was, I always imagine that when you laugh, somebody laughs at Karen and somebody laughs in Kibera, the laughter is the same. Like, the effect on the body is the same. The laughter in Karen doesn't have a different kind of electric jolt, than the one in Kibera. I mean, life is simple. Laughter is just universal. And so we live in a paradox where we are now in complexity, now we're in simplicity, now we know, now we do not know. And we have to be conscious of that space in life where we all live. Then when matters love are, they are the most talked about matters. Love is such a big part of life, such that you listen to songs, like almost 95% of songs played on radio, on standard radio, apart from, of course, those that are played in faith stations. They have love messages. Either somebody is happy, or somebody is confused about love, or most people talk about broken hearts. I think most songs are about that. Then look at movies as well. Movies are, they all kind of have a line, a theme of love somewhere. And I even the ones that are like, Vietnam kind of combat movies, somehow they still have a love theme somewhere. And that tells you a lot about love. And this has been going on for generations. And I'm glad that the scriptures do actually dedicate an entire book, that is the Songs of Solomon, on this thing of specifically romantic love, so that we know that it's an important aspect of our lives. Right there in the scriptures, one wonders, that book is so off in terms of everything. If you compare it to other books, like, how did this book get here? But it is there. It is right there, specifically about romantic love. Again, affirming that love is a big thing. It's a big theme. And even the big people in scripture, you're talking about the Davids. They had their own dramatic encounters with love. We're talking about Solomon, and one of the things that Solomon said is, and he was a researcher, he was a philosopher, and he said, I mean, there are some things that are, just amazing. And one of those things that made it to the list was the way of a man with a maiden. Anyway, even as human beings, some of the most memorable moments, whether they hurt us or they delight us, are moments about romantic love. So, and it's this love also, just as life is complicated. It's not as simple or as express as red roses. It's not like that. I mean, it's maybe the red rose represents the ambition, but now and again, right there, are thorns right below it, and thorns are part of the rose as well. So, but we kind of cover them, sometimes chop them off, but they really are part of the rose, the whole rose thing. So it's complicated. And so when you find yourself in a place where you're enjoying love, I mean, just know that's life. If you find a place where you are hurting about love, just know again, that's life. And it's kind of we live in that tension. Now, love is so important, even on matters singlehood. I was trying to think about, did Jesus say anything about singlehood? Because if something makes it to the lips of Jesus, then we know it's important. It's big, and surprisingly, I mean, singlehood made it onto the lips of Jesus. I mean, it did. And let me read it. Let me read for us. I know it's a kind of we don't want to expound the scripture right now. We just want to read it. I just wanted to show you that actually singlehood made it to the lips of Jesus. If it was just to show just how important this experience is of singlehood. And listen to what Jesus says. That is in Matthew chapter 19, verse 11 to 12. Matthew chapter 19, verse 11 to 12. Again, I think for the sake of just spicing this up, let me read the version that is the Message, which is really a translation. But this here, what's the Message says on Matthew chapter 19, verse 11 to 12. But Jesus said, not everyone is mature enough to live a married life. It requires a certain aptitude and grace. Marriage isn't for everyone. Some, from birth, seemingly never give marriage a thought. Others have never been asked or accepted. And some decide not to get married for kingdom reasons. But if you are capable of growing into the largeness of marriage, do it. Now, a lot's in there, but the big point is that singlehood did make it to the lips of Jesus, and he spoke about it favorably. That's interesting. He spoke favorably about it, and that's a whole thing that we can be able to engage that passage itself. Now, I'm just trying to also reflect on my own life as a single person, my own life when I was, when I was not married. I got married at the age of 39, which for 39, I think 39. Yes, I think it was 39, 38, 39. And for many people at that age is rather like, it's not your standard age to get married. Usually to be about, 30, to 35, that's taken to be like, hey, you are on the right side of marriage. But the moment you start going into 36, 37, 38, 39, it looks like, hey, even for a man, I know sometimes it's the dynamic is also intense for the woman, but for the man also, once you go down the slope of going towards 40, then, and you're not married, I mean, there are also dynamics around that. And I did get married about, I think, 38, 39. And so I had a whole quite experience when it comes to being single for, not for long, but maybe for longer than is standard. As we, I'll share a bit about my experience during that time. And but first, I just want to just talk about singlehood in relation to marriage. And I say that there are those who are single and not seeking. It's nowhere on their ken. It's nowhere on their forehead. They're single and they're not seeking. They're not bothered even. They've not reached a point when they are thinking about having a partner. But I mean, they're single and not seeking, and have never really been in a place where they're seeking. There are those who are single and seeking, and single and seeking, and there are many, who are single and are seeking. There are many who are single and are seeking, and that's a very vibrant space when you think about it. And I always tell people who are in college, if you're single and you're seeking, college is the best place, to, yeah, I mean, in terms of variety, in terms of the mood, college is a very good place to seek and find, to be sought and be found. I mean, it's a wonderful, so if you're in college here and you're single and seeking, just take college as a very vibrant place. Those who come out of college and experience now the different space, you realize things get more scattered outside of college. So just something to throw in there, that if you're in college, please make good use of that environment for many reasons. So there are those who are single and are seeking, and then there are those who are single and they are seeking, but they are also anxious. That's another category. Some people are seeking and they're fine. They are okay just seeking. They are okay just looking for a partner. They are okay looking for a relationship, but they're not anxious. They are active, but they're not anxious. But there are those who are single, seeking, and anxious. Anxious about an anxiety, we're going to look at it as we go along, takes many forms and leads to many kinds of behavior. So there are those who are single, seeking, and are anxious. They are anxious whether they will find a person in the first place. They are anxious if they will find the right person. They are anxious if they themselves will succeed in the relationship. Lots of anxiety there. Single, seeking, and anxious. But there are those who are single and open. Open in this way. Open in that if they find, that's okay. If they don't find, that's fine too. They are single, seeking, but open. To them, if they're finding a partner is a good thing, but not finding is also equally not a bad thing. So it's a win-win kind of mentality. And that is increasingly happening, especially in our contemporary society today, where seeking a partner, finding one is not so much, it's not so primed as it used to be in some previous cultures. So some are single, seeking, yes, but they are open. They are open. They are okay either way. Win-win. And there are some also who are single and resigned. They have been seeking for a long time, or for the duration of time that they have been there, and they have been seeking, and now they have given up. They have resigned, and they are now, counting themselves as having failed in that endeavor of seeking. Notice that they are, unlike the open ones who have a win-win kind of mentality, the resigned ones count themselves as having failed. They count themselves as having failed. And that's a very different place to be in when it comes to the single status. And then there are those who are not resigned, but they are settled. They're like, I'm okay. I am fine. I am settled. I'm not seeking. I don't need to go on that way of life. That's not my way. I'm just okay as a single person. And so they are settled in their singlehood, and they are not anxious, and they feel that they are complete. They feel there's nothing really to look for. And you have to take them through a lecture as to why it is important for them to be seeking for a partner. And you'll not be successful because they feel, okay, I hear you, but I'm fine the way I am. Now, there are those who are settled like that. And I have met a few people who are that way. And they're just settled. And that's an interesting place, because when a settled person who is single meets an anxious person who is single, it's kind of a staring in the eye kind of moment. Why are you anxious? And the other person is like, I mean, why are you worried about, you know? So it's interesting when you think about it. But there are other forms also of singlehood, which will not delve in this conversation. There are those who are widowed. They once were married, but they are widowed. They also fall in a kind of a sophisticated single category. They are widows, they are widowers, and also they are the divorced. All these are in another cluster of singlehood, but they also are still single. Now, I'm sure that we understand singlehood from different angles. I mean, if you understand it from an aspect of culture, and that's why Kevin specifically put it in context and said, in the Kenyan or African culture, it reaches a certain age and everyone is asking you what's going on. And if you are a woman and you're seen with a man at a certain age, everyone looks at the man twice like, is he the one, you know? And also if you are a man and you have, clocked a certain age and you're seen in a coffee place, either GNR or at Java or or at maybe another place, depending on where you are at, whether you are Azimio or Hustler, depending on what's going on there. So people think that, hey, could she be the one? Because it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing that at a certain age you're supposed to be partnering up. Now, the interesting thing is that if you go to another culture, like the Western culture, actually you find that people are single there much longer. They are much longer single because there's no pressure. There is no pressure in the Western culture to get married. No one will, very rarely will you be asked, for instance, are you married? You'll be asked, are you dating? But there'll be no pressure. Because the pressure is much less in the Western culture. So you find that people there are able to stay, they are 30, they are ladies, they are 35, they are ladies, they are 40, they are ladies, they are 50, they are men, and still, not seem to be pressured to marry because the culture is very different. So for that cultural aspect, it also determines a lot. The culture you're placed in determines a lot how you understand singlehood. So the understanding of singlehood as maybe as a deficit, I mean, it's very local. It's very, very local. It's not global. You'll be surprised. It ain't global. And I think it's good for us to take that, take that in mind. That's the understanding of singlehood as a deficit isn't global. It's not. Actually, it's just African in a big way to feel like it's a deficit. But also when you think about nature, if you understand singlehood from the aspect of nature, you do actually see that there's a lot of partnering going on even in the larger part of creation. So you find that even in the animal kingdom, there's a lot of partnering up, and there's a lot of, like there's a lot of, intergender kind of associations, even in the animal kingdom. So you look at that and you understand, maybe I need to, in response to nature, just maybe also look for partnership. I mean, for a partner, for a companion. I mean, that's also another way of looking at it, at nature, as from singlehood from a nature point of view. Then also in terms of faith, and that's a big part for us. It's a big, big part for us because most of us would come from the household of faith. How do we understand singlehood when it comes to faith? How does the Bible handle or express singlehood? I just mentioned to us here that singlehood did make it to the mouth of Jesus, and he spoke of it as favorably as he would speak of marriage. I think that is interesting. So in terms of faith then, and we'll look at that as we go along, it's important for us to understand how, just how do we understand and how do we experience singlehood in the dimension of the Christian faith and in the biblical understanding. But also in a secular world, singlehood is also understood, but as a dimension of choice. There are many choices you want to make, for your own comfort, and of course, central in the secular world is individualism. It's the person. You make choices that are pleasant to you, and so. Quite central there is the aspect of choice, that I can choose to be single, I can choose to be married, I can choose to be unmarried, I can choose all that. All those things are present when you understand it in terms of choice, that singlehood can be a choice, and getting out of it is also a choice. And that is also a dimension that people really also engage by. Now, all right. Let's start with some challenges of singlehood before we go to even the faith understanding or the biblical understanding of singlehood. Let's start with the challenges. Because sometimes the big understanding of singlehood, especially in our culture, is taken as a deficit. Although we are going to also, again, a bit departed a little away from that understanding of deficit as we go along. Now, when it comes to the challenges of singlehood, one of the big challenges is self-esteem. You feel unloved, you feel unwanted, you feel undesired, and that can go right into the core of your life. You feel like you're not good enough. Why am I, being loved? Why am I being sought? Why am I being asked? Why am I being dropped all the time? Why am I being left each time? And that goes, right into your identity, and you start feeling feelings of being unloved, being undeserving, being inadequate. That's one of the challenges of singlehood, especially when you are seeking and you've been seeking for quite some time. Then also, even when you are sober in your singlehood, there's always the fear of missing out, the fear of missing out on marriage, such that even though you don't want to be married, either by your choice or by circumstances, you still have a thought of wondering, by the way, how would marriage be like? Or how would partnering be like? So there is that challenge that you have a curiosity, even though you have made a choice, even though you are comfortable in your singlehood, humanly speaking, there's always a curiosity of how marriage would be like. And you have to really justify or think that through and still bring yourself back to a place of balance. But there is that curiosity, the fear of missing out on marriage. And that's a challenge also when you think about it. Then also a big challenge of singlehood is just childbearing. Because sometimes people may not, the desire to have a child sometimes is even bigger than the desire to have a partner, to have a husband or a wife. Some people long for children, and many people get married for children, and many people stay in marriages also for children. That's amazing that they can go through every duress and every stress because of the children. And so because children are, from the cultural practice and also from the faith practice, are known to be born in a context of marriage. So we find that the anxiety around how will I get a baby, how will I be a parent, especially for men, they would ask, hey, I just want to have a child, I just want to have a child. Time is, I'm really seeking, I'm not finding, but if I can't find a wife, can I get a child? Now, also for the same thing for the ladies, you ask yourself, hey, if I cannot find a man, now can I find a child? And that argument is usually very intense when you think about it, both in terms of, just philosophically and sometimes also theologically. It's a very interesting conversation there. But also the area around having children and nurturing them becomes also a big challenge when it comes to singlehood. And just the whole thing about loneliness. You may be bold and like steer yourself through life until you are maybe in your 50s and single, whether man or woman. But as you start going a certain slope, the reality of loneliness begins, aging alone, right? Aging alone and doing life, latter life, on your own. And that brings some dynamic of a challenge. You can think I'm vibrant, I'm making the money, I am making my career, I am going on up, and you can even actually say I'm even better in a way than those who are married. But as you go a certain slope, it is clear that loneliness becomes a reality, and you want to have a partner at that particular time. Again, a challenge of singlehood. Coming closer home to day-to-day interactions. Let me speak up to on the ladies here. Sometimes as a single woman in a social setting, you have a threat status. Women who are married would want to, to have too long conversations with their husbands because you carry a threat status, and that is so common. It's interesting, because maybe they think, oh, that's a single lady, and oh, she's talking to my husband. What is she saying to my husband? Could she be enticing and seducing my husband? And sometimes this is so not right because the woman is innocent. The woman is is having a genuine conversation, and then there's that threat status, and with that threat imagination you also get threat treatment, and more than when you get that vibe a lot of times, you start also now withdrawing from intense conversations in social circles. And even for men, it's the same thing. If you are single and mature, and other men see you speaking to their wives or to their fiancés or something like that, there's a certain threat which you carry, And it's interesting because they think, hey, could this guy be looking more attractive to my wife than me? And could this guy be seducing my wife and all that? And so there's a threat status that comes with singlehood. But some people see it positively because they feel single and powerful, Did I laugh? I don't know, but yeah, when some people get that vibe, they think, hey, I'm single and powerful. And it's interesting when you think about it. Then also, a big challenge in singlehood is purity, sexual purity. It's a big challenge, and people don't talk about it often, but the longer you wait, the more complicated your sexual story is bound to become, because what do you do with your sexual urges? Humanly speaking, you are growing more mature, and your feelings grow mature with, your sexual feelings grow mature with you, right? They grow mature with you, they mature up. So, and you're single and in a Christian setting. So what do you do with your sexual pressure, both internal and sometimes external? What do you do with that? It's a big challenge. And sometimes it's a quiet current, but it's a very powerful current that singlehood comes comes with. One of the things that I find my wife and I praying for our children is that we want them to get married early, you know. And one of the things that makes us, you know, pray for them to get married early is that their relational stories are not as complex. But the more you grow in age, the more your sexual story can be complicated. And I'm being a bit philosophical there, but I take that we all understand. So purity is a big challenge. And also, another challenge that is there is actually poverty. You know, it's poverty. I was brought up by a single parent, and one of the challenges I found as a young person growing up, it's just that there was not enough money going around. Economically, we were totally challenged. And sometimes in my own mind, I would wish we had a father. And my wish for a father was not even to get a father figure, but one of it was economics. Maybe life would be better. Maybe would have a few more comforts than that my neighbors had or my churchmates had that we couldn't afford. Maybe I wouldn't be having the shame of being chased from school and having to be returned without fees and things like that. And so there's the real aspect of poverty and the singlehood. You feel like if you had a partner, you'd go more, you'd do more, you'd go farther. And I mean, it's a real challenge, even for some, the economic challenge, the aspect of poverty, just because you are single. And I mean, I just want to, again, even in connection with that, just mention a few things that complicate singlehood. There's some things you're already single, but some things can complicate that singlehood. And of course, pregnancy is one of them. And pregnancy, I mean, both ways. When you're single and you are a man and you now, you know, you birth a baby and you're single, your singlehood becomes complicated. And also as a lady and you're single and you get a baby, your singlehood becomes complicated. I'm saying that because I grew up in a single parent family and I kind of see the complications around that from my experience. Also, what could complicate your singlehood are multiple relationships whereby you are single and you are seeking and you are hopeful, and then you're going in and out of relationships, and that has its own complications, because with every relationship there's a memory. With every relationship you carry a memory. Hopefully it's a fair memory. I would not say it's a pleasant, but I would say, because a relationship that you are in and you left is unlikely to have a good memory, but can have, on a good day, a fair memory. But if the more you go in and out of relationships, and they could be complicated relationships, that also complicates your singlehood, because you feel like you're dating on one hand, you are single, on the other time, you're not, on another dimension, you aren't single because you are in constant relationships. So your singlehood tends to, evaporate a little bit for a little while, then you come back to it. Now that becomes something that complicates your singlehood. And so you find that some people who have been in and out of relationships at some point just say, no, I don't want any other relationship. I just want to be with me now, and with me and Jesus. We just us. I'm tired. I'm tired of these relationships. And I, as a woman of faith, as a man of faith, you say, hey, Jesus knows my address. I'm P.O. Box Meru, I'm P.O. Box Mombasa, I'm P.O. Box this, and I just don't want anymore. I don't want anymore. And so every time you see a man or a woman and you're single, you're not attracted to them anymore, because you are coming from a memory. You see a person who will disappoint you, a person who will hurt you again, and so relationships do actually complicate singlehood. And then this is very, very important. Now, one of the things I would say complicates singlehood a lot, and take this very as a key point, is thinking of marriage as the center of life. When you think of marriage as the center of life, then you will always feel like a person on the margins. You can't avoid it. Because for you, marriage is at the center of life. And so if that is your philosophy in life, or if that's your worldview, or that's the way you understand things, then you have no choice but feel on the fringes. You'll always feel on the outskirts of life, because marriage, as far as you're concerned, is at the center of life. Now, when you think about life that way, then your singlehood will be definitely complicated. You know, it will be permanently complicated. But I want you to think at this point, is marriage the center of life? Yeah, it's a strong desire, but is it the center of life? Now, if you give marriage the center of life treatment, then you will forever be on the fringes. You'll forever live in its or on its outskirts, you know. And that is something that, from my observation, we need to engage as a single, you know, when you're in a single state. And if you're able to engage that and realize that marriage, there could be bigger centers in life than marriage, then you begin to thrive. You begin to thrive, because putting marriage in the middle in a way, and it is not happening, then it kind of maims you in a way. It kind of limits you in a big way. But the moment you are able to have a perspective where there's something else in life that is at the center and not necessarily the marriage, then you find you open channels and you open up corridors where you begin to thrive. That is an important point, and I would hope that we can have that as a takeaway assignment for us as we go along. Then, of course, connected to that is really the desperation. Oh, yeah. I mean, desperation complicates singlehood a lot, because in desperation, which is connected to that's that whole esteem thing, then you lower your standard, and all you long for is not being married to someone, but being married. It's not finding the right partner. What you're looking for is really a partner, because desperation in singlehood most of the times will lead you to lowering your standards. And lowering your standards is a whole thing by itself on anything. Think about high standards that you have on any matter, and you have to lower them, then definitely there's a certain dilution of your life when you do that. And also what attached to that desperation are anxiety-based diseases. You know, anxiety-based diseases. You sometimes panic. Sometimes you might just cry uncontrollably. Sometimes you might get into just, episodes of depression and withdrawal, and you're not an introvert, So it is, there are some things that can complicate, your singlehood. And those are just some of them that I want to mention there. Now, that's like the first half of our presentation, and I want now to move to the biblical view of singlehood. And then after that, we'll look at how do we thrive when we are single. But for us to gain that perspective, it's good for us to look at the biblical view of singlehood. Now, where is Kevin? Kevin, where are you?
I'm here, Rev.
All right. I just want to catch a glass of water, or I'm feeling like I'm running out of breath. Would you just give us like a 1-2 minutes break by engaging us, and then as we go to the biblical view of singlehood?
That's fine, Rev. You can have your water, and I am seeing people have streamed in huge numbers, and I was just looking at the chat section there, and I'm seeing very interesting comments. Those, I think Camila is just mentioning, those who say that they are single and powerful. He found that to be very interesting. And Christine is saying Fury's sense of humor is a bit questionable when he's asking, did they laugh? But sexual purity, I've seen maybe that would be something maybe we can delve into a bit deeper, Rev, towards the end, because I've seen Mutethia there commenting, it is a whole elephant in itself. So I think that merits a conversation, and I can see someone else also, Kefi, responding the same thing. An interesting comment from Mutetha, who says, marrying early can either be positive or negative. I don't know what the rest of us think about that statement. Marrying early can either be positive or negative. It depends on oneself or the marriage partner or players, although players can have ambiguous meanings, especially given the conversation. But marrying early can either be positive or negative. I don't know what you think. If you think of, you agree or disagree, maybe you can share the chat section. Watu wa PO Box tumewaona, and the people who are, it is them and Jesus, they have decided the way things are, they will be, they'll remain like that. Yeah, but I think even as we continue to reflect, Furia, I think I'm liking how this, I mean, the former question, I think some few people have added something. Please feel free to engage the chat section. Do you think marrying early is positive or negative? I think that was a question that was posted, but I was just also remaining with the question you were asking about marriage being the center of life. Is it? And sometimes I especially think in the African context, you know, if you're not married, it's like you're half human, right? So I think I'm just looking forward to hear that biblical perspective of singlehood and how it can change how we think about the same topic. Maxwell is saying, very powerful or informative teaching, man of God, Barikiwa. Ogea is asking, when is this early and when is late in regards to marriage? Now, I don't know if that is it is called a rhetorical question, but it is certainly a good point I think Ogea is making. When is the right time to marry? Is that right time to marry? And maybe Fury, towards the end, you can help us to reflect on that. Brian agrees that marrying early is neither positive or negative. It depends with who you are. All right, Nora, I agree that marrying early can be both negative or positive, depending on a number of factors, one being mature or immature, being ready or not ready. So the whole aspect of readiness. Yeah, Fury, I hear that's also an important question. People ask, how do you know when you are ready? For those who are thriving in their singlehood, and I think you had talked about single and expectant. At what point can such a person feel that they are ready? So maybe readiness is something to also discuss towards the end. In fact, Mary, it's like we're in the same spirit. Mary is asking, how do you know one is ready for marriage? So that's a good question. Good question, Ogea. Stanley is saying, are we talking about teen years, 20s, 30s? Ask the Rev to kindly explain, right? So when we're talking early, Rev, you said you are, I don't know if he's still, I hope he's still here. Oh, yes, I've seen you. Rev, you're saying that, you know, you've been praying for Thayo and Vega, and this is a prayer you make with Mary, that they marry young. How young? Someone is it teenage? They come yani after, you know, now the way it's, the semesters have been messed up, so to speak, because of COVID. So before any they finish Form 3, is that early? Anyway, I'm sure you can be able to explain that. Yeah, but I think, thank you so much. Please, let's keep engaging on the chat section. Yeah, someone is asking Ivy, backstory to, this is a question or a suggestion to you, Rev. Please, may we have a bit of a backstory on Rev's singlehood story, basically lessons etc. And I think you had shared briefly at the beginning, but you could maybe recap as you're concluding this last section. And then Kirago Kelvin, romance versus, I'm trying to interpret this, romance versus or plus finance. Okay, I'm wondering whether can romance work with or without finance? That relationship of romance and finance, why is it such? It is such a complicated relationship. How come? Why can't it just be sinina kupenda? You know, in fact, for me, when I was thinking about marriage with my wife, Jessica, then we were dating still. And, you know, at that time I was just a full-time student. You know, there are people who have that status. And I used to say, I love her so much. And I'm telling, like, okay, at some point I had to tell my parents, you know, of course, in a respectful way, that I'm thinking about this seriously. And people are just reminding me, just remember, love will not put food on the table. And I'm like, you people, why can't this love and finance just have a simple relationship? So I think that's something that people are asking about. Let me just read one or two more that have come in, and then we shall proceed, Rev, with the second section, or the biblical view of singlehood. The League of Stingy Men Association. is curious. The League of Stingy Men Association is curious. Nora Matheka, I had a preacher saying, being old or young depends on how you would want to interpret it. 35 is old if you will die at 40, and 50 is young if you will die at 100. Yeah. Nora, I think, can be our guest speaker. Nona shares some good points, of course, in the light note. I think that's very powerful. That's a good reminder of like age is relative in a sense. Benjamin Zulu says pre-25s should not date, let alone marry. How early is early? So that's a question. Another question that is coming, what is the age? So I am single, I am looking forward to, I am honest, I am expectant. At what point do I know now maybe it's time to take a step of faith? Charles Wandalo has a very interesting question. Have we spoken about a lady's fear of menopause and no prospective men? Fortunately, Rev, you're the one who is speaking, so I leave that to you to handle. But asanteni sana for the comments. I think we've gotten a sense of the kind of questions and the kind of concerns we have and the suggestions that we are having. So please keep them coming, because at the very end, we will have an entire session on a Q&A. So we will get to handle some of these. The last comment I think I'm seeing from Christine as Rev prepares to go on. I listened to a podcast today that mentioned that singlehood is the default of life. We were all single before we found partners. So it's ironical that people make singles feel bad for it. I think we should enjoy it while we can. Also the fact that if we always think about marriage, we'll miss the here and now. Hiyo inaitwa wisdom, and I think I would agree with that. I keep on saying how interesting it is in single. Like you can just decide tomorrow I can travel, I can pursue a master's, I can do, if I'm in that capacity, you can do that. For me now, sometimes we have to have a sit down, a meeting. We plan and you give reasons why. It's like a strategic meeting almost. So certainly, I think singlehood is really a good opportunity to expand and grow. Rev, please pick it up from there and talk to us on the biblical view of singlehood. And I think at the end of it, we will unpack the questions.
All right. Well, it's interesting. The kind of questions are very serious. I think we're having a very serious discussion, including the League of Stingy Men. And all right. But it's really, as we began by saying that life is simple and life is complex. And sometimes you are on like the simple side of things and you feel like you figured things out. Sometimes things are thick and you wonder, what's the point? What's the point? The same thing about love, Sometimes you feel like you are the best lover in the world. You feel like, you just want to compose a rap right now, about, just how, whatever is going on is really good. And sometimes you feel like writing a car song, just wondering what's love all about? Why did people bring us to a point of loving? What's this love? Why did love even come into being in the first place? So it's an interesting conversation. But it's very interesting that the whole idea of how early is coming up. Honestly, I'm surprised that that becomes a bigger issue of how early is early, and what the whole debate around age and timing and all that. I think that's a whole discussion by itself. It doesn't have scientific prescriptions to it, but it has wisdom to it. So it's a wisdom matter. It's not a scientific calibration kind of matter. It's more wisdom. Because you can get into, once you get to the calibrations, they are all over the place. But wisdom is key. But the beautiful thing is that wisdom is available and in generous portions, especially for those who are in the household of faith. It's available. So it's more a wisdom matter than anything else. And many things are a wisdom issue when it comes to when it comes to their wisdom matter when it comes to making decisions. Now, it's also hello.
How was it? For you? How was that? The wisdom. How did you utilize the wisdom received for yourself?
Well, I mean, I started out foolish. I started out stupid. I started out like below par. You know, I started out like relationship-wise clueless. I would say I had like the right intentions. I desired to get married, but I didn't have the wisdom. So I would get into a relationship, but I'm not certain how to manage it. You know, I think my first, having grown up wondering whether I'm likable, I think my first score was just being liked. Now that you've been liked, what do you do with it? I'm not supposed to be laughing, man. I'm not supposed to be laughing at all, you know, but that was really it for me. You know, I grew up in a village where I was just locked up most of the time. And so, I mean, when I come to the city and there are all these, college girls and they are very sophisticated, went to big schools, the schools that are prayer items and fasting items. I went to a school which maybe a tongue can bleed to pronounce. So it's, and I come face to face with all these Kenya High people, and they're wondering, I'm thinking they're looking at me and seeing my villageness right through my eyes. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? So anyway, it was, yeah, I'm not supposed to. I'm not supposed to laugh. Furi, just be serious, man. Yeah. So, I mean, it was, for me, it was more a matter of being liked, you know, and I'm being very personal here. I think when I made the liking test, I was so like mesmerized. I was stranded. And the next thing I know, the relationship is over. I've been left, you know. Ayo. Furi, just stop. Just stop. Furi, just stop. Anyway. God. I should stop this backstory, man. I think it's just, just to summarize it, is that I really lacked mentorship. I lacked mentorship totally. When I look at myself, I'm like, what was going on there for you, man? Because I really wanted to get married early. I wanted to get at 26, you know, you finish campus, 24, 26, I wanted to be married. But I was full of so much immaturity. And I would say that the relationships I got into were casualties. It became casualties of my stupidity, which is really bad. I am not proud of myself at all. When it comes to that part of my life, I'm not proud. And I labeled myself like a risky person. Yeah, I just stopped. I would just stop that. But anyway, I was really clueless. Like wisdom was far away from me. It was far away from me. So of course, when you're not wise, you're stupid, you're foolish, and you do foolish things, stupid things that you regret. And so please seek wisdom in your relationship. Pray for wisdom every single day. You know, if you can pray thrice a day for wisdom, please do that, because that will help you a lot. It will rescue you from episodes of shame. It will rescue you from, misleading people. It will rescue you from just catastrophes, relationship catastrophes and accidents, which are very dangerous, you know? So wisdom. So I suffered a lot, lack of mentorship. And at some point in my life, I just gave up. I just said, hey, I'm a risky person. I'm a risky kind of brand. So please just stop. I had myself like, stop these relationships, man. You are risky. You are risky. And I stopped, actually. I actually stopped. And now coming to work in church as a pastor made it even more, need for me to stop, because you cannot eat the flock. You can't. You're not supposed to do that. It's illegal in every single way, so that in a way, just sobered me up, because I was supposed to also be exemplary in many ways. And that helped me, but I gave up, actually. I just gave up on relationships completely. And when I talked about God, my address, that was actually my prayer to God. It was not, it could sound like a quote somewhere, but it was actually a real prayer for me. I told God, I don't want any more of these things. My address. Once you find the right person for me, you know where to get me from. And that was a real prayer, because I was tired. I was really tired of in and out of relationships. And finally, in God's own way, I would say, God did find my address through one lady called Mary Fowey. And we've been living in the same address since then. And we are thankful. Now, backstory long and interesting, but not nice. Yeah, but now where we are at is a beautiful place, and I'm thankful to God for that. So, and I would say that now that this has been asked, I would say that during my my singlehood, I remained open. Even when I said, like, God, I don't want these things anymore, my address, I remained open. But no longer actively, looking, and no actively being in relationships. I would actually stay away from them. When I see like I'm nearing one, I would just step back, because I had bad memories. But I was very available for service, very available. Like with their weekend challenges, I would be there from Friday, and take the evening tea on Sunday, then you get, because I'm not rushing anywhere. I availed myself for service, and that became a big part of my life. I think I had in fact, my wife tells me that when we started dating, I had 3 places. I would either be in church, or I would be at home, or I would be in the village, taking care of my mother. I would visit my mother like almost every weekend, and that was the way one of the things that I was in church doing stuff. I was either at my own home or I was in the village. I mean, that was my triangle. I formed a triangle that really kept me active. And I would say that if you're single, maybe yours is not a triangle. It could be a square, or it could be a rhombus, or it could be a pentagon. I mean, that has bad political connotations, but anyway, whatever it is, create. When you're single, define your rectangle. Determine your triangle or square of operation. Put the pegs of your intensity. That really helps. And then also, when I was during that time, I took on some interesting projects. Like, there's a book I wrote, and I wrote it out of singlehood, and I wrote it because I was single, because in the evenings I would say, what do I do? And I wrote an entire book knowing that, because I had time in my hands. And what do I do with time? I wrote a book then. I also became a person who was writing articles in the newspapers and all that. I took on a heavy project, and for that, not by accident, but by design, because I had time, and so I took on that project, and that's a good thing to do heavy projects, do heavy challenges for yourself when you are in that single space. Then I developed myself as well. I developed myself asset-wise, I developed myself education-wise, deliberately, again, because I had to think about myself and time and what I can do with it. I think when you're single, one of the big questions is, what do I do with this time? What do I do with this time? I And once you start answering that question, then you find very great things that you can be able to do. And then also, I found myself refining myself more as I would critique myself a lot because I had time. I would critique myself a lot and I would refine myself. I became a better me, during that time because I would take a lot of time just refining myself. Then I took on, global opportunities. I could just put on my small backpack, pack a few shirts and out I go, Yeah, and the investment at that particular time, I enjoy to this day, because that globalness that I experienced today was experienced then, was so then. So I'm just saying that there is a whole bright side of singlehood, and I think that's what also I want us to get into. There's a whole bright side of singlehood, and no wonder Jesus actually spoke positively about it. Now, biblically speaking, I'll be very honest, there are not very many single people in the Bible. Not so many. I'll be honest. I don't want to say there were like 55 single people, and they were like, and they had like 100 other cousins who were single. No. In the Bible, we don't have a lot of single people, and that should also tell you that that there's culturally there's a preferred mode of existence, and that is the family way. But that said, theologically, when you look at Jesus himself and what he came to do, isn't it amazing that when Jesus came, he came to save us from our sins? Can you think about that? Not to rescue us from loneliness, but he came to save us from our sins. What does that tell you? What's the most important thing when it comes to God, when you think about that? Joseph and Mary were told, you shall call him Jesus because he will come to save people from their sins. Now that should put you in perspective in terms of like the spirit of living, the spirit of life that God is assisting you. He came down here to assist you to live a certain way of life, and that should inform us quite a bit. And then also you find that I love the fact that in God there are no fractions. There are no fraction human beings. There are no fractions. There's no three-quarter person. Like Kevin was saying that in some cultures, when you're not married, you feel like you're half a person. Now, that is a cultural thing. But when it comes to Christ, when it comes to Christ and God, you are created in the image of God, and that image is complete in itself, such that there are no fractions of people. There is no a three-quarter person. In God, you are you are complete. You are whole as a person, such that even when a man meets a woman, it's not half and half. Actually, it is two complete people meeting each other, And so it's important for you to understand, because the emphasis on singlehood tends to slice you into small pieces. I'm single, I'm a single mother, I'm a single guy, I'm a single this, I'm a single this. And you're slicing yourself up. And as you slice yourself up, then you're also slicing up the fullness of Christ in you. But Christ is complete. Once you have Christ in your life, there's a completeness that comes, and you should not slice that up. Or rather, you should now deal with your singlehood from a point of completeness. That's important. Deal with your engage your singlehood from a platform of completeness. That is critical, because the Christ in us affirms us. Now, moving on to that, to also this understanding, think about the promises of God. Think about the promises of God. And again, Jesus says, I came that you might have life, and life in fullness. I came that you might have life, and life in fullness. Now, what does that mean? It means that in your state, even like now when you're in a single status, are you a candidate of abundant life? Yes, you are. You are a candidate of abundant life, and you can live an entire life, of having been single, like the lady who used to intercede in the sanctuary. And I mean, her and another guy called, I think, Simeon. What did they say? I mean, your servants, we have seen the salvation of the Lord. I mean, your servants can depart in peace. Fullness. Now, abundant life, even in your singlehood, there is abundance. Yes, there is that not being married part, but there's also the abundance part. And as a Christian, let's lean more on the abundance part as compared to the side of not having, not having a partner, not having a mate, not having a wife or husband. Lean on the abundance side. And once you lean on the abundance side and ask God, how does abundance look like in my singlehood? And before long, you will realize that as the Holy Spirit of God inspires you, you are single, yes, in terms of marriage, but you're abundant in terms of life. Now, that's important for us to understand. And so lean on the side of abundance. Now, think about other promises, like I have a plan and a future for you. I know the plan I have for you to give you a future and, all that. And are you caught up in that as a single person? Is God having a plan for you? Yes. And a future, and I like the scripture that says, our God is able to make his grace abound to you, so that in all things and at all times, lacking nothing. I like that. The Lord our God is able to make his grace abound to you, so that in all things and at all times, lacking nothing, you will abound in every good thing. I like that. And so as you are experiencing as you're going through the experience of not having a mate, not having a partner, but the grace of God is abounding to you. Just allow grace to abound, so that in all things and at all times, even these times of singlehood, you will abound in every good thing. I mean, allow that to happen in your life, or understand your life that way. Walk on those corridors of the grace of God abounding to you. And so, friends, I want to say that even in your singlehood, as a Christian, yes, we face that reality, but God has given us another reality of abundance and abounding. And that is the corridor that I propose for you to take, and to walk that path. So even as you are seeking to thrive, understand your singlehood from the platform of abundance. Understand your singlehood from the platform of abundance. And that way you start having an abundant existence, even in the absence of a mate, in the absence of a partner. Understand yourself as complete. Don't single, half, fraction. In Christ, understand yourself as complete. But that does not mean that you do not seek or you do not remain. But even when the person finally comes, they meet a person who understands themselves as complete, not because of just secular affirmation, but because Christ in us completes us. And also, on a more practical note, there's many opportunities that are available when you're single. There's so many opportunities that are available at singlehood that will not be there anymore when you get married. So I'll think about those opportunities. I gave my own example. I mean, that's just one. There are many other examples that we can talk about, but there are opportunities that are available in singlehood and not available in marriage. And look for those and enjoy them for the time that they last. Then do not look good. When you are, sometimes when you're interacting, do not look, good for marriage's sake. Do not look good because you want to go out and meet someone. I mean, that of course is somewhere, on the back of your mind. It's a possibility. But when you look good for good sake. In fact, I would say, look good for God's sake. Don't look good for seeking and hunting sake. Look good for God's own sake. Look good for God's sake, right? And so that way, you even when you show up in social places and all that, you look good, but it's not good because you're searching. You look good for goods and for God's own for God's sake. And also, do not look only on what you do not have. Don't look just on the outside. Don't devote yourself on, bringing in. Devote yourself also on the inner person, the beautiful inner person, the character, the values. Devote yourself also to making the internal project successful, And it's joyous when you are working on yourself, when you are working on particular characters and working on particular traits on yourself and seeing yourself improving. Seeing yourself improving, it's a powerful thing, So don't just look outside, look also internally. And then also when it comes to the biblical understanding of who we are, purpose to be a person of impact. Purpose to impact, don't walk with a deficit mentality, walk with an impact mentality, because there are particular things that you are going to impact the society with, and the identity of marriage will become second. Then people will not ask, by the way, is that person married? No. They'll get to know your bio later, and they say, hey, yeah, he is single. I didn't know. Oh, she's single. I don't know. I didn't know that, because the impact actually goes ahead of the marital identity, So purpose to be a person of impact, and let people be knowing your bio later, right? And there are some things that you can be able to do so impactfully, because even when you are not even when you're a single person, because you are single, you can do a lot of good things impactfully, and your bio of whether you're married or not comes later. Purpose to impact. And I would say again that that as a single person, fulfillment is available. Fulfillment is available. Fulfillment is available. There is fulfillment. You can enjoy life, and you can enjoy life genuinely. You can. Fulfillment is not only in the marriage area. There are people who are married and not fulfilled. That's the truth, And so there are some qualities of living that cut across. They are not restricted to particular areas like fulfillment. You can be single, impactful, and fulfilled. It is very possible. Now, wear that understanding even as you go through this season of your life. And as a matter of closing, I will say that make wealth, because it's a good thing. You have an opportunity to do that. Be global, be global when it comes to your perspective and also your geographical location. Be global, develop yourself. Let it be that if you are going to get married, if you're a guy at 39, let there be evidence to show that you've been working on something. You cannot get married at 40 and with a lot of respect and have a WhatsApp group to raise some portion of to help you in all these expenses, in all these expenses. When you're 40 and you're getting married at that particular time, let there be evidence that you've been waiting for this, You cannot now be have a WhatsApp group like the guy who is 25, who is getting married at 25. You're getting married at 40. Let there be something to show that you've been around and you've been thinking about this, So in other words, develop yourself. And when you are single, do more. Do more. In the spirit of hustler, not as Emil, but, in that spirit, do more. You can do so much. You can do 3-4 jobs when you're single. You can do that. So do more, because singlehood is a gift in that way. You can do more, and you can make it, you can do so much more that you can even make the married envious, wow, that guy does so much, yet he's single, she does so much, yet she's single, like, wow, you make the married people envious because you're doing so much. But most important is also, as I close, love yourself. Just love yourself. Love yourself. Love yourself. Let it be clear that you love yourself. Don't wait for an external love to affirm you, or an external love to really breathe air into your nostrils. Love yourself. And I don't mean that you be selfish. I don't mean that you be self-centered. I just mean for the sake of that word love, when you're single, love yourself. Even when you get married, you'll still need to love yourself. So I would say, and I would go with what Jesus said, as we read in the passage, or from the version of the Message. I would say, yes, I would speak of singlehood as Christ did. Speak of it positively. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Wow. Thank you, Rev. I think when we were thinking about this conversation, I think I did not foresee it being engaged at such an intense level, and from quite a broad perspective. And I find that for myself as well, I've had a lot to think about when I think about singlehood. There's been quite a lot to think about. And I think the comment section, I can see people just commenting there and just saying amen, amen, amen. And, wow, amen, amen, amen. So people are just have been blessed, I think, from the responses, and just commenting on some of the things that you have said. I'd like to maybe unpack a little bit of it, and we won't take too long because I see that time is not is far too gone. But there are a few questions that had come to myself, and I think there's some on the chat section that you've already engaged with. There was the question of readiness, and I think you helped us to summarize and think through it as not a mathematical formula, but as a process of wisdom and a process of discernment that is best answered also within the context of a community, within a context of other people who are wise and who have walked the path, can also assist us to answer that question of, am I ready? Because that's a big question for people when they're single. And I think for me as well, I think I am just mirroring back what you're saying, Rev, and when I think of my own experience as well, I could say that, and I think at some point there I was laughing my face off on how, you're learning how to process these emotions of liking, and before you know it, as fast as you process them, that same speed is the same speed that you are left, or that things ended, and that I was just laughing, and I was telling myself, like, stop laughing anyway. But I think for myself, I think I remember that period being also one where working with other people who had been married was very helpful for me. And for my case, I think it helped me to deal with many misconceptions about marriage. Or even on the question of finance, I found that for me, it was as simple as sitting down with this couple and they told me, look, how much does it cost to, if you will be renting a house, for example, how much is rent? How much is the food that you're taking, the milk and everything else, the foodstuffs, the onions, vitungu, depending on how you like your food. What is the budget for that? And so they were able to just break it down, and I came to see, actually with X amount of money, marriage isn't this mysterious thing, and finance is also not a mysterious thing. It is something that is very also practical and has, fairly good steps. But anyway, I think that has been an engaging conversation on singlehood. I think you began by looking at a few challenges. You talked about desperation, which sometimes when it creeps up, it can lead to lowering our standards and also to dilution of life. I liked how you looked at it that way. And I think there was an image there that you remind that came out very strongly for us, that when we see our lives as, from a place of singlehood alone, then it's like we are chopping off ourselves, right? And you are inviting us to live fully, take advantage, expand, grow, save, invest, learn, equip yourself, take on new challenges. And I think that was so clear. So let me ask a few questions. I think the first one that I had been asked, and I think we can keep them coming on the chat section. We can do it for about 10 minutes and then we can call it 10, 15 minutes. So the first question that I had been asked was, during the waiting season, what are some of the things that one can be doing as a Christian to avoid being caught up with pressure from the society and close circles in order to thrive? I think you answered that, but do you want to say something there?
Yeah, I think that it's not really things you're supposed to be doing in waiting. I think that is not the right perspective. The right perspective is, what things am I supposed to be doing? What's my purpose? As compared to, I'm waiting, so let me keep myself busy. No. It's not about keeping yourself busy. It's about living. It's about thriving. Let it be that when that moment comes and you're now married, let it be that, wow, let your spouse admire what you did when you're single, So it's not a matter of keeping yourself busy. It's a matter of finding real things that you are supposed to be doing for both an internal and external impact. And you now utilize a singlehood space, to achieve that. So it's not about keeping ourselves busy. It's about impacting our community. It's about glorifying God. And when you think about that, then you get lots of things to do, even in terms of self-development.
Great. I think that's well answered. The one of the other questions I had was on a question of intentionality. Yes, we are thriving in our singlehood. We are taking it as a stage of development and growth and expansion. But for those of us who are expectant, expectant also can be read in many ways in the context of this conversation. Expectant for marriage, to be more specific. So someone is asking, what is your thought on one moving to another church because he or she is moving to another church to find other groups of people, because in their church, most of the people are either married or maybe younger than them. So how purposeful should people be? I guess that's a question in terms of being expectant and doing something about it. If they want to connect with people of the opposite sex and those people are not available in the community of faith.
I think that that's it's a strategic question. It's an issue of strategy. As I said, in terms of strategy, if you were to talk strategy, college is one of the richest places. In terms of mood, in terms of variety, in terms of, likability, even permutations and combinations, chances are high, are way higher, And when you are in college, you have the luxury of time. Some of us have 4 years together, others 6, years together, depending. And relationship, the topic of relationships is alive compared to the workplace, So the college space is a very rich space when it comes to connecting. But now, if you are out of it, there are two things. There are two aspects. Once you are open to getting married, and then if you're open, of course, you are seeking, and I would use, even the ladies are seeking, as much as they are being sought, they are still seeking. Being available to be sought is really seeking when you think about it. So it's a strategic issue. And I would say, honestly, there are some things that would happen naturally, like you are in a space and a social space or whatever space it is, and a natural thing happens that, makes you strike into a conversation or make you have to work together or something like that. So there could be a natural thing that ends up being something. But and this is what people look for most. People look for more natural spaces where you meet a person and then that person you get to connect and all that. But in the absence of that, it's okay to be intentional. I would say that if you are in a church, for instance, If you're in a church where it's mostly senior people, like people who already are married and they have grown-up kids, and that's your church. I mean, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt at all. I mean, it's not a crime to move to the church down the road where there are younger people. It's a strategic move, but when the natural thing is not, I mean, it's just wise. I mean, because marriage is an important thing. So being strategic about it, while at the same time being authentic about it, is important. So I have I wouldn't speak against anyone who says I moved to the church down the street because there were younger people, there were more vibrant social fellowships. I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with that kind of strategy. So being intentional is a good thing, but being desperate is not.
Thanks. I think that's clear. Being strategic, even as we pray and as we are expectant, what can we do? And I think this
actually it's not being strategic as we pray. It's being strategic because we pray.
Yes. So both, it's a both and, right? So it's a both and I think that's very, very clear. So asante sana Ref for that one. Why is it that when women clock 30 and have not been married, it's hard to get a potential person to settle down with?
Again, this is a social question. It's an issue of just how society evolves. For instance, if you are, let's even take it a little higher, it's kind of a hierarchical thing, such that when you are younger, there's a greater variety, and so permutations and combinations show that there'll be more. But the more you go up, this is a reality, like if you are at 60, when you're 60 years old, it's very rare. It's unlikely. I mean, it's a newspaper, a Citizen TV kind of an item. When you are 60, you've never been married, and you finally got married to a single person who is 70 or who is 55. I mean, it's a whole thing. So as hierarchically in the way the social order goes, you find that people do get, it gets rarer and more rare. And I think that's why in terms of strategy, it will be a good thing, not that people don't get married at 30, 40, 50, but just know that as you go up, in terms of age, it also makes the availability, of suitable people becomes also a lot more strategic. Let me use it's a lot. The strategic has to be more sophisticated the more your age advances. So I wouldn't say it's a factor of that you've done anything wrong. It's just the way society is, that as you go up, some aspects of life become less common, and so requiring a lot more strategy. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Trev. I think I'll ask maybe two more. So if you have any question that you feel has not been answered today, please write it on the chat section so that we can wrap up. We have enjoyed your interaction and your questions, your comments, and really, opening up our understanding for those who are asking. I think there was one. How would you respond to the question of romance and finance?
Right, romance and finance. Does marriage need money? Yes, it does need money, because there are huge budgets in marriage. Actually, you can say that if you have a lot of money, it's a good thing for marriage. Especially when the love is authentic. When you have children, you have a family, and you do not have money, I'll be very honest, it is difficult. It's difficult. So it's not about romance and finance. When it comes to the reality is that you will need money. You will need money in the marriage. And we cannot say, you cannot cap it and say that this is the amount of money that you need. But if you have, the more of it you have, the better. So work hard, bless, may God bless the labors of your hands. And when you have enough for yourselves, you can help others, so romance, you can't escape it, my friend. You can't escape money. I mean, that's truth. I mean, you can't. Marriages run on a huge budget, man. Some of which are just impromptu budgets. You plan a nice thing, like let's speak to the guys here. Sometimes you plan very well with your wife. I mean, you plan to the cent, to the cent, and you have a joint account and all that. And maybe you spend things and your wife knows that you don't have any cent, you don't have movement, you are so tight, but she'll still call you and tell you, by the way, come with milk, I mean, and come with milk. And like, what do you mean? Come with milk. I thought we were tight. I thought all that, so you need money. You will need money. That's for sure. But have blessed money, have a lot of it. It's good for a home. And it's even good, it's good. Even when you get a lot of money, when you are single, as long as it's money that's a blessing from God, it's a good thing. So romance, finance, directly connected. You can't escape it.
Would you say, and I think I agree with that. Do you think, I think because there's also been the narrative of people postponing marriage for a very long time. And of course, I think earlier on you spoke about some of the challenges that arise from that, and maybe that's a question we can answer. But for the sake of finances, some people, is there like some middle ground wisdom so that money is not, let's say, a hindrance? Because you're talking about it as a blessing, and it really is.
Yes.
But is there an extreme? So you're looking at that one side, but is there an extreme also?
Yes,
of money being a hindrance?
Yeah. There are extremes. For instance, if you love somebody because of their money, that's off. I mean, you love somebody or you relate to them because they are so rich, they're so wealthy, and that becomes a big motivation. That's already off, and then also as you come together, there are some basic things. Do you have a house over your head? Because marriage is not like a forced thing. It's not something that is an emergency. It's not an emergency. So you cannot say we were thrust into this position. No, it's not an emergency. So there's some basic questions you must ask yourself. Do we have rent? That's very important. The answer should be yes, especially because it's not an emergency. You started chasing girls when you were in class 6, and now you are 35 and you cannot answer the rent question. There's something wrong, at that point. So my word is that, do you have food to eat? Will there food to eat? And the answer should be yes, there should be food, because you cannot get somebody from their home, bring them to yours, and then you have nothing to feed them with. And it's not an emergency. It's not compulsory. It is not a camp. It's not a concentration camp. So yeah. So then also ask yourself. I mean, once we have a baby, what's the plan? What's the plan for this baby? You have to answer that question. You cannot say, throw your hands there and say, usani yake. I mean, no, you have to answer that question. There are diapers, there are things like that, and you must have an idea of where that money is going to come from. The kid is going to go to school. Again, kids are not an emergency. They are not at something that, no. You know that this kid is going to go to school, and CBC is the way it is, So I'm saying is that, I'm not saying that, what I would say is that be realistic about this. Be realistic. Be realistic about your finances. Be realistic. And again, you should not be so finance heavy that you paralyze yourself. You paralyze yourself, and I mean, if you're marrying at 25, for sure, you've just had 2 years off college or thereabouts. But as long as you have a certain particular focus, and that should be fine. As long as there's a realism and there is a mobilization fund, for your marriage, you should be fine. So be realistic. But again, don't be what can I say? Be extremist. And saying that, oh, I can only marry somebody who has a car, I can only marry somebody who lives in this part of town. I mean, now you're being something else. You're being something else there. I'll not mention it, but you're being something else. But just be realistic about your possibilities, or your finances. Be realistic.
Good. So maybe 2 questions. I think one has been asked, and there's someone who's just responding to what you're saying there and saying, well, maybe he has a different. Let me actually just read it so that, so he says has a different view because according to him, money is the reason why most of marriages fail. I don't know whether you want to respond to that claim, but still it's because of money that a good youth percentage are not marrying, according to this person who's responding, and more so where the female wholly pressure the other gender to provide without appreciating one's potential. Yeah, so I guess there's a question there, whereas there are these realities, we're also living in a time where women have been empowered and are earning, even in some cases, more than men, even in relationships. So is there, how would you respond to that? I think that's maybe a concern raised with regards to that.
I think I'll stick to the same thing. Marriage needs money. There's no escaping it. The motives, all those things are important, but you can't escape that. People may say that women are pressurizing men. So the problem is not, it's not that money is not important. The thing is the woman is pressurizing. Let's deal with that. Let's not deal with that money is not important. I mean, if the woman is pressurizing the man, let's deal with that pressurizing. But there are many people are not marrying today because of lack of money, or because of I mean, they feel that they cannot be able to sustain a family. I would say I think that's a genuine reason. It's a genuine reason. I mean, I would say as long as you're not becoming what can we say? You're not becoming a person who is paranoid. But if you do not have enough resources to mobilize a family, I mean, it's a good reason to wait. It's a good reason to wait. I mean, I'm being honest because you might go into this thing saying, oh, I mean, we don't need money to get married, but I'm telling you the truth, you will quickly disapprove that theory. So I think the issue is not that money is not important or there is pressure. The issue is the motives and the dynamics around it, and the questions of living in a very materialistic society where people really have to compare themselves, where we ask ourselves how much money is enough money and all that. And I think that's where you need to exercise a lot of maturity. And I can tell you for free, you could be a man, you are marrying a girl who doesn't work, who is not working. And you're like, hey, I'm working, so I'm bigger. But within 2 months, 2 years, the girl gets a job and quickly overtakes you. And for as long as your girl works in a corporate environment, be ready for her to overtake you. Be open, prepare your mind for that moment. Yeah, prepare your mind for that moment. Don't be shocked. Don't hate her. Don't start acting funny like a kid. Don't be petty just because your wife is getting more money. Instead, you should prepare yourself for that moment. Prepare yourself. Part of your masculinity is preparing yourself for the moment when your wife will make more money than you. Not start saying, hey, oh, now I'm looking for somebody else. Oh, I'm a mea pembe. Siku mea pembe. Ukweli, she's been promoted. That's the thing. She's been promoted, my friend. Not that, what do you mean? Anyway.
All the ladies in the house, yeah, man. Anyway, I think that's truth. Maybe you should consider adding that to your sermon this Sunday, Rev. But So I think I think two more questions. I'm seeing time is going. So two more. There's some good comments there. People just following up because I'm seeing people dropping off, and I want us to all finish together. So someone is just noting that, well, how come a surge in the number of unmarried youth? What can you attribute this to? Number one. Number two, deals and job connections are cracked in bars and joints. This is having a toll on straight, godly people. Your thoughts in relation, especially to gentlemen, potential providers.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll be very honest. If young people are not getting married, and I think it's because of mostly their understanding of what marriage is, and lack of mentorship, I think, more than anything else. I think it's more a wisdom issue. It's not a youth issue. I think it's a wisdom issue. A young person will not get married because they don't understand, or they have questions that some people are not answering. But as a young person, and you want to get married, ask these questions. Have somebody you ask these questions. Everyone has fears. Everyone has anxieties. Even on that wedding day, when you're waiting for your girl to come down the aisle, you'll have some anxiety. It's not like you'll be like, hey, I'm feeling like so, hi, this is it. I'm feeling all this. No. There'll be some anxieties, but you need some person to always to ask these questions. And some of the things that you fear, you realize that they are solvable. So I would say that young people are not getting married more because of a gap in knowledge and a gap in wisdom, not because they shouldn't, and not because that they should wait longer or anything like that. Is a gap in knowledge. The moment you have the knowledge, the questions asked, you have somebody to ask the questions, then you become more, freer and bolder and more clarified. So seek mentorship seriously. And then also in terms of deals being cracked in pubs and places like that, and this hurts the godly people. I would say that there are many deals being cracked away from pubs. I'm telling you, there are so many deals that are being done away from pubs. Yes, there are deals being done in pubs and all that, but we cannot now say that the pub is the deal making place. No. Oh, no. The pub may be making deals, but the pub is also breaking deals. It's also breaking deals at the same time. And so there are many deals being done in spaces of sobriety. What you just need to do is get the networks. The pub is a network thing, but there are also other non-pubish or non-pub networks that really are doing great things and accomplishing great deals. I'm saying something I've seen with my own eyes, So don't borrow that idea that pubs are the deal-making places. They are also deal-breaking places. And get the right networks, depending on your area, get the right networks of people who deal above board, and they are still making big deals. And so I would want to put that in perspective, because I've seen many good deals done away from pubs, and not 10 years ago, even a week ago.
Yeah, and I think one of the good things about being in a community of faith is that you have these resources, as you're talking about, wisdom and networks, free of charge. I mean, in churches, you have people who are in all sorts of spaces and industries who we can always make deals with, so to speak. So thank you for that. So second last question is age difference in marriage. Is that a thing? And then the second question, the last one, talk of sexual purity in singlehood, because I think that was a big issue. So how can Christian people who are in this stage of life, how can they walk, the journey of sexuality in a way that honors God?
With the first question was just.
First question was age difference. So someone was asking.
Yeah. Age. Let me start with age difference. Age difference. Different people would. There's no cut thing about it. again, I think I'll go back to wisdom more than, as a big quality when it comes to making the decision of who to get married to. Because I mean, personally, I am not big on age difference. I'm not big on making that as a critical factor. It doesn't rank number 2 or 3. I think for me, age difference ranks number 17 or thereabouts. There are many other things to consider. And I think the age should not be a primary factor when, because of course, I'm sure that if you are 30 years old, I'm hope that you're not marrying like a 12-year-old or something like that. I'm thinking there's a wisdom going around here, and you see, so age is not a primary factor. It depends on the wisdom you two, are able to express around that age component. So I would say it should not come first. It should be a discussion. It should be a real discussion between you two. But if for one of the persons it's a big thing, then you can't proceed, But if it's something that you both are willing to have a conversation with, you can actually lessen its impact significantly. So that's what I would say. If somebody thinks, oh, age is a big thing, and they can't proceed, you can't force them, But if they're willing to have a conversation around the age difference, then, have it, and what are the real fears? What are the real anxieties around it? And the moment you're able to handle those practical things, then you find that it no longer is a scaring factor. And as long as you two have agreed about it, then the society, will not talk about it too much. The society does not talk about age, it talks about the quality of marriage that you have. Yeah. And then comes to purity, purity in marriage. There are no two ways about it for that one. It's a battle that we must fight and win, because our sexual purity is a big component of our Christian faith. One of the ways we honor God and one of the ways we honor our faith is by not committing adultery and its cousin, fornication. It's right there, in the commandments. And so there are no negotiations about that. It's just the way it is. You just ask for grace to make it through, but there are no leeways about that. That I would just say, and it's not a rule. Don't see it as a rule, see it as a freedom. See it as a freedom, because it is a freedom. It's for your own sake that you are told don't commit adultery. It's for your own sake that you're told do not fornicate. It's not that God now is waiting for you to do these things so that, he can deduct all the points and things like that. No. It's for your own good. It's for your own good that you don't commit adultery. It's for your own good that you do not commit fornication. There's a freedom that comes with it, and there's a grace that God grants, as you obey and as you engage in that line of making sure that you remain pure sexually.